Right, boys and girls, what I want to show you today is what I've done on the gearbox. As you can see, I've got in the new bearing at the front end of the on the main shaft. There's two bearings. There's the one on the front, and inside this plate there's another one that has to be pressed into the housing. Now, if you remember, I had to wait for some gasket paper to come to make a gasket for this seal. Now, this adapter plate, this is where you would probably come across most of your problems, because there's 3 or 4 things you've got to do all together, otherwise it just won't reassemble correctly. The first one being, obviously with any main gearbox, is the layshaft down at the bottom. That has got to be assembled and laid in the bottom of the gearbox. And what I used was the old layshaft, and I cut it exactly to the exact size of the complete rebuilt layshaft, including the thrust washers. Because if you don't, those thrust washers will fall off when it's laid in the bottom of the gearbox, and you'll never get them back in again, because it's a really tight fit to get those in. The size of the thrust washers. So that was the first obstacle to overcome. At the same time that layshaft is laying in the bottom of the gearbox, you've got to press this. You've got to press this main housing, which I'm showing you just there, with the bearing in, and the assembled leg, all the assembled gears. The gear, this side of the gear assembly, has all got to be pressed in together, avoiding the layshaft and making sure that the layshaft doesn't fall apart while you're doing that. In the meantime, at the same time, you've got to make sure that your gasket paper isn't getting creased up, because this plate, this adapter plate, has got to press the main housing bearing all into situ. So you've got the gearbox up on its end with the layshaft laid so that it doesn't fall apart on you. You've then got to pull this main adapter plate onto the face of the gearbox. But there's also a locating pin in this plate, and on the housing, on the bearing housing, you've got to make sure that that's aligned, the bearing's aligned, the gasket's all aligned, your main shaft, your layshaft isn't falling apart on you. So when you've eventually done that and you pull it into place using the studs, you don't have to press it in. All this forms part of the overdrive assembly, and you fasten this piece on afterwards, which I'll come to in a minute. So when you've accomplished all that, and then you finally think you've done it, and you put the layshaft back into situ, which I did, I then realised that to put the input shaft on that fits into your clutch, obviously, I had to do the same again. So I had to partially dismantle the layshaft again, drop it down into the bottom of the gearbox, and then put this bearing in, which couples up to the other end of your main gear. It's quite a convoluted way of doing it, and to be fair, it's really quite stressful, because all the time you're expecting the 2 thrust washers to fall out of the layshaft. Anyway, we accomplished all that. We've got the new reversed idler in there. We've got the lockout rail. This is the rail that locks out the gearbox, the overdrive, and that in turn pushes this along here. This is just a spring to keep it tensioned. Now this, you can fit all this in after the adapter plate. All this is a separate assembly. All you've got to do on this is you undo that circlip, and all this will come apart. So the next job obviously is just to fit the roller bearings into this plate here, which is quite straightforward, because all you hold them in with grease, and that'll just push straight into the sun gear on the overdrive unit. This part of the system is very simple and very easy to put together. You could one circlip, the whole assembly will pull off this shaft, and all you're concentrating on is this end plate. And the reason I didn't make a video when I was doing this was simply because it keeps falling apart on you. The gears won't line up. The layshaft laying in the bottom rocks over, and it's very difficult. It's all got to be lined up correctly before it'll go in. I've got the selector shafts in there just simply because I wanted somewhere to put them. I wanted to clear my bench, I'm still waiting for one of the selector forks. I've got two. These are the reverse one. That's a good one. This one's not brilliant, but I think it would. I think it's good enough. I'll just show the wear on this one. That's the wear on that shaft. You can see it just there. It wears on that edge there. So you can see it has just rounded a little bit. Now I did get a second-hand one, and I thought I'll try that and see, and to be fair, it's worse than my original. You can see the difference in the wear on that one. You can see it's rounded quite a lot. See how that's supposed to be? That's supposed to be a square corner. You can see that's well worn. So that one ended up being worse than the one I actually had. But you live and learn. This is the one that came in the car, and I don't actually think that's too bad. The problem is AH spares, I don't believe they're exactly the same selector fork. I'm going to actually send him a photo of mine, because the diagram's very difficult to tell. So that's where we are so far. I've just got to fix the solenoid on. This is all part of that's the governor, and that's just the Woodruff keys and things. So all that's got to go on. There's the needle rollers that they've got to go on. You just hold those with grease. The only problem arises if you was trying to do this on the car, and once you've split this, the bearings will fall out. But it's not on the car, and it's going to be very easy to assemble that. There's no stress in that whatsoever. This is the difficult part, because you can't assemble the gearbox without this plate, and it's such a difficult thing to do, to get everything lined up. Now there could be a special tool for doing that. I don't know. I did actually download this Borg-Warner R10 overhaul instructions, and this chap has posted it up online, and it's a really useful piece of kit. Now I did actually study that very carefully before I was rebuilding my overdrive. So that's where we are at the moment. I'll just pause the video and then show you what else I've done. Right, and on the engine, I've fitted the harmonic balancer, and this was quite a tricky procedure as well, because you've got to pre-fit it. You've got to put the timing cover on loosely, and the pulley actually is well recessed into the thing by about an inch. So you've actually got to pre-fit it first to get your seal lined up, grease the seal, push the balancer on, so that it's going to go without creasing the seal. Then you put a couple of nuts in to hold the cover, then you take the balancer off, fit the timing cover, and then push this back on. So that's that part done. Yeah, we've put the water pump on, that's all ready to go. So yeah, there's the front of the engine, just about finished now. I'm just going to repaint the fans. On the manifold, I've got one manifold on, and if you remember yesterday I told you that I'd got one of the chaps, what he's done for me is he's got out there was very badly worn studs that were in this housing on both of them, so he managed to get those out. He's put some new studs in them, and that's waiting to go on. I'm waiting for two studs to go in here and two nuts that hold it on. Then I've got the manifold to put on. So yeah, so that's where we are so far. And again, he's drilled these out for me and put some new studs in. It cost me 30 quid for it, so I'm quite happy about that. And he also one of the heat shield bolts was snapped off, so he's drilled that out, tapped it, so now the heat shield has got two studs to hold that in situ. So that's where we are at the moment, boys and girls. So I'll post another update when we get on to the next stage of the gearbox. Thank you.